Chapter 61. A piece of starlight. At the moment, Yi Wanwan didn't know about the speculations of old Madam and Mo Sun, only that Si Han's illness wasn't as serious as 7 years in the future. The man in deep sleep looked harmless and didn't have that usual fearful aura around him which allowed her to relax a bit. While Si Han slept, Yi Wanwan looked through some entertainment news and the latest gossip on her phone. The hottest stars in the entertainment circle changed rapidly, switching out new sets of people every few months, not to mention 7 years later. Other than evildoers like Xie Zhizhi who became famous instantly, most people who were big stars 7 years in the future weren't famous yet, and some of them haven't even entered the industry. Currently, the Yi Group had a number of theater chains, film production companies, and even a stake in the media. Below them, Emperor Entertainment was the industry's most senior media agency, which represented the big shots. Now or 7 years in the future, famous celebrity kings and queens signed with Emperor Entertainment. It could be said that Yi Group controlled half of the entertainment circle, holding countless artists' livelihoods in their hands and deciding their fates. Whether you made it or not depended on whether this company wanted to support you. From her memory, in the upcoming few years, the Shen family would grow rapidly, going from being a small company to occupying an important place in the entertainment industry and even catching up to the Yi family. In this life, I'll never let these people succeed. However, before she could act on anything, she needed Si Han's total trust and a certain degree of freedom. She had to make the most of every second to arm herself with the relevant knowledge. She had to take back everything she'd lost, crush Yi Group and return to the top of the entertainment circle. With these thoughts, it was like the fog shielding her ignorance and hesitation had been scattered, and Yi Wanwan was filled with motivation instantly. When Si Han opened his eyes, what he saw was the girl's bright sparkling face and a pair of black eyes. It was as if she was the Milky Way with thousands of twinkling stars. She was incredibly beautiful. His slender fingers couldn't help stroking that piece of starlight. Yi Wanwan was too busy scheming and suddenly felt something scratching at her eyelids. It was then she found out that Si Han was awake and she lifted her head. "You're awake? What were you doing?" As he'd just woken up, his voice was a little raspy. "Seeing that you fell asleep, I didn't want to interrupt you, so I was just browsing on my phone. Are you tired? Do you want to go back to the house to sleep? You'll get a cold if you sleep out here." Yi Wanwan asked. Hearing the girl's concern for him, his expression looked slightly startled. He wrapped both of them up in the blanket and like a big cat, he tucked his head into her neck. "Want to keep me company?" Chapter 62. Aren't you going to keep your Majesty company? What's with this whiny tone? The warm breath coming from the crook of her neck and that languid, sleepy voice by her ear left Yi Wanwan dumbstruck. Is Si Han actually spoiled? Maybe it was because of the shock or the irresistible way Si Han was acting that led Yi Wanwan to nod her head subconsciously. When she had realized what happened, Si Han had already gotten up and was walking back. After they got back, servants immediately welcomed them warmly. "Ninth Master, Ms. Yi. Old Madam specially instructed us to prepare a room for Ms. Yi. Would Ms. Yi like to rest now? Let me show you your room." She had no choice as she was captivated by his charm and had already promised Si Han that she'd accompany him. Yi Wanwan looked at Si Han and said, "I'll drop my things off first and take a bath. I'll catch you later." The still sleep-deprived Si Han wasn't in a pleasant mood, but he agreed. Thus, Yi Wanwan followed the maid and entered the room on the second floor facing the south. "Ms. Yi, please enter. This is the room." The maid pushed the door open. Once the door was open, all she could see was that the whole room had a pink theme, pink bedsheets and quilt, pink curtains and carpet. Even the headboard was in the shape of a little crown and overhead was a dreamy canopy. It was simply dreamlike and girly. Her misunderstanding of the old madam had been quite deep in her previous life. She had felt that she was the devil, but actually, the old madam really viewed her as her future granddaughter-in-law. Otherwise, she wouldn't have prepared a room for her and put in so much effort simply because she and Si Han were dating. You could even say that she treated her like her own granddaughter. But in her previous life, she was a troublemaker and criticized every single thing. "Miss, are you satisfied with this room? If there's anything you don't like, we can change it immediately," the maid said, with fear and hesitation. Yi Wanwan regained her composure after her initial surprise. "No need for the trouble, I like this room a lot. Please thank Grandma for me." The maid heaved a sigh of relief. "Then Ms. Yi, do have a restful night. If you need anything, you can reach me by pressing the bell at any time." "All right, thank you," Yi Wanwan nodded. Clothes and all other amenities were available in the room. Yi Wanwan picked a cute, baby pink nightgown from the closet and then headed to the bathroom to shower. Girls tend to take longer in the shower, and when she was done, half an hour had already passed. Yi Wanwan dried her hair while opening the bathroom door and immediately saw Si-Han sitting on that extremely dreamlike and girly princess bed. She was unsure how long he'd been waiting. Yi Wanwan was stupefied for a moment and then quickly said, "Let me blow-dry my hair and apply my cream, I'll be done really soon." Seeing that Si-Han didn't reply, Yi Wanwan sat down in front of the dresser and started drying her hair. In the meantime, Si-Han was silently sitting on the edge of the bed, waiting for her. Watching her dry her hair, splash water on her face, apply facial essences, eye cream, and cleansing cream. His gaze didn't leave her for a second. Yi Wanwan peeped at the man from the mirror. His face looked slightly annoyed. She strangely felt that Si-Han's face was plastered with these words written on them. "Why are you still not coming over to accompany your majesty?" Yi Wanwan sped up, wiped her face hastily and put everything away. "I'm done, let's go." Chapter 63. You're amazing. If Yi Wanwan's room was comparable to a fantasy idol drama, then Si-Han's room was akin to a scene from a thriller, just like his dark bedroom in the Jean Garden. When Yi Wanwan went over, there was already someone waiting inside. It was Si-Han's private doctor, Emo Xian. Seeing the two of them enter, Emo Xian stood up. "Ninth Master, Ms. Yi." Si-Han seemed to be accustomed to Emo Xian appearing in his bedroom at this hour, so he walked to his bed expressionless. Yi Wanwan followed behind Si-Han, her footsteps slightly hesitant. "Am I disturbing you guys by being here?" She knew that nobody was allowed to interrupt while Si-Han was being hypnotized. Emo Xian looked at Yi Wanwan. Theoretically, she would be a disturbance. Hypnotism needs to take place in a completely enclosed space with no outsiders. However, considering their speculations that night and also, since Yi Wanwan was Si-Han's personal guest, he didn't dare to chase her away, so he said, "Let's try this out first." "Oh?" Yi Wanwan nodded. Si-Han laid in bed and saw her standing some distance away. He then furrowed his brows. Yi Wanwan was a little confused. Si-Han asked her to accompany him, but she didn't really understand what he meant by accompany. Furthermore, with Emo Xian still around, she was embarrassed to just lie on the bed next to him. "Come over." While Yi Wanwan was still hesitant, the great devil's patience had run out. Aware of the danger in the atmosphere, Yi Wanwan scurried over at once and sat down on the edge of the bed. In the next second, he stretched his long arms to scoop her body up, grabbed her waist, and laid his head on her tummy. Yi Wanwan leaned on the side of the bed. With her body used as a pillow, she didn't dare to move an inch. Emo Xian was busy getting ready to perform the hypnotism and was slightly surprised at Yi Wanwan's change in attitude. In the past, Yi Wanwan viewed Si-Han as scary, but she was still very strong-willed and refused to give in. But hopefully, this woman has really figured things out and doesn't hold any ill intentions, otherwise, the person who'll suffer will be herself. From a bystander's point of view, he knew it was wrong of Si-Han to disregard the girl's wishes and force her to be by his side. But talking rationally about right and wrong with this emotionless person who crawled out from hell? That was senseless. After a moment, everything was finally ready. Emo Xian walked over to the edge of the bed. "Ninth Master, we may begin." The Si-Han on the bed didn't respond. "Ninth Master?" Emo Xian called out again. Si-Han still didn't respond. Finally, Yi Wanwan saw that Si-Han was sleeping soundly with his eyes closed. She began, "Ninth Master seems to be asleep already. Dr. Emo, you're amazing." Emo Xian was quiet for a long while and his face surveyed the scene once, like a merry-go-round, completely speechless. "What's so amazing? I didn't even do a single thing." Emo Xian saw for himself that he wasn't just asleep but was sleeping very peacefully. He wasn't even disturbed by the people talking next to him. Mo Xian had mixed feelings. Could it be that the times when Si Han fell asleep naturally were truly because of this woman? Then why didn't I realize it before? Also, Yi Wanwan didn't do anything to cause it, right? Chapter 64. Her cover would be blown. Mo Xian looked at Yi Wanwan. Since Ninth Master is asleep, I'll get going. Yi Wanwan didn't notice any difference in Mo Xian, so she nodded and replied, all right. After Mo Xian left, Yi Wanwan continued to accompany Si Han for half an hour before confirming that he was indeed asleep and then returned to her own room. The next day, under the pergola in the courtyard, Si Han did his work while Yi Wanwan worked on her homework next to him. The two of them were concentrated on their own tasks, looking warm and harmonious. Probably due to a good night's sleep, Si Han was in a good mood the entire day. He didn't throw a fit even when a servant accidentally spilt water over his papers. He merely frowned and waved the servant away, then instructed Su Yi to retype the document. That servant stumbled off like he was in a dream. Su Yi brought the retyped document carefully over to Si Han, then continued standing by his side in silence. These 2 days, Su Yi's thoughts were somewhat complicated. Yi Wanwan had been so obedient which made him question whether she had been possessed. Even the old madam was very pleased with her and the things he feared didn't happen. Maybe I'm really overthinking things? At that moment, a phone rang. Su Yi looked at the table instinctively and saw that the ringing came from Yi Wanwan's phone. On the display was Shen Mengqi's name. Seeing this name, an ominous foreboding rose in Su Yi's heart. Yi Wanwan finished all her homework very quickly, and while she was contemplating tackling math, an incoming call interrupted her. Seeing the name on the display, Yi Wanwan's eyes glistened. If she remembered correctly, Shen Mengqi of the past had called her at this time precisely to inform her that Gu Yuze had gotten in a car accident. However, this time, Shen Mengqi didn't know that she was at the old house yet still. She called. This was understandable since she could change the series of events at the old house but couldn't prevent Gu Yuze from getting in a car accident. With such a good opportunity to cause trouble, Shen Mengqi naturally didn't pass it up, so she called her just like she had in her previous life. Let me go take a call. Yi Wanwan informed Si Han, then walked towards some faraway shade in the trees. Si Han glanced at Yi Wanwan's back, his gaze gloomy. A few seconds after Yi Wanwan walked away, Su Yi's phone rang as well. Disbelieving what the person was saying over the phone, Su Yi's face turned white like it was the end of the world. After a long while, Su Yi hung up and looked at Si Han in a state of distress, and he seemed to be hesitant about what he wanted to say. Si Han was aware of Su Yi's strange behavior, so he threw him a harsh look. Speak. Su Yi's body shook as he said, just received the news that Gu Yuze was in a car accident. It seems pretty serious and he's currently getting emergency treatment at the hospital. At this point, Su Yi didn't dare continue talking. What he had been worried about had finally happened, and it was even more serious than what he'd imagined. The call Yi Wanwan picked up just now was probably Shen Mengqi telling her the same. Gu Yuze had been hurt so badly, how could Yi Wanwan resist going to see him? Maybe once she heard this news, her cover would be blown. Chapter 65. Let's have some fun. Yi Wanwan wasn't worried at all. She allowed the phone to ring once more before slowly picking up. Hello? Wanwan. What took you so long to answer? Where are you? In school? Wherever you are, hurry come down to Ren AI Hospital. Mr. Gu is in trouble. Shen Mengqi's frantic voice came through the receiver. Sure enough, this call from Shen Mengqi was as she'd expected. Yi Wanwan gently stroked the rose next to her cheek, pretended to be surprised and raised her brows. In trouble? Yes, I just received the news that Mr. Gu was in a car accident and was hurt pretty badly. He's currently in the emergency room and the doctor said his life might be in danger. If you don't want to regret this day your whole life, then head over there now. Shen Mengqi's tone was steadfast, as if she was sure that after hearing this news, Wanwan would definitely disregard everything and rush over. Yi Wanwan seemed to have suddenly turned cold towards Gu Yuze, and this made Shen Mengqi very uneasy. Now, this was simply a heaven-sent opportunity to revive those feelings in Yi Wanwan. In the past, she'd make a big fuss even if Gu Yuze hurt his hand lightly. She didn't believe that Yi Wanwan could act cold-hearted this time. Afraid that Yi Wanwan wasn't hooked, Shen Mengqi added some more bait. Wanwan, Mr. Gu's car accident was a bit weird. The car crashed straight into him in broad daylight, as if on purpose. Could it be that Mr. Gu offended someone? Who'd be so daring to hurt the Gu's family young master? She was obviously hinting that Si Han was involved in Gu Yuze's car accident. If she could worsen the relationship between Yi Wanwan and Si Han at the same time, that'd be like hitting two birds with one stone. Yi Wanwan sneered in her heart after hearing this. Although some things had changed, Shen Mengqi's tactics hadn't. Her fight with Si Han in her previous life was all because of those words Shen Mengqi had just said to sow discord between them. In actuality, Gu Yuze's car accident was simply a fluke. Even though it was cleared up in the end, Shen Mengqi only made subtle hints and didn't specifically blame Si Han. Also, in the past, she'd never suspect that Shen Mengqi would say all those things to cause trouble and would instead believe that Si Han was indeed linked to Gu Yuze's accident. Shen Mengqi rambled on for almost half a day, and after it all, Yi Wanwan leisurely replied with 2 words, "Got it?" She hung up. After she hung up, Yi Wanwan smiled dryly and stared at her phone. Right now, Shen Mengqi must be hiding behind the hospital door, waiting to catch her in the act of cheating and then plotting to send proof to Si Han, allowing him to catch the traitor. This was her plan. TSK, since Shen Mengqi's trying to mess with me, why not join her at her own game and have some fun together? After finishing up with the call, Yi Wanwan went back to the courtyard. After packing up her textbooks, Yi Wanwan looked at Si Han gleefully and said, "Darling, it's getting late. I still have to go to class tomorrow. I'm going to head back to school." Despite seeing Yi Wanwan returning from a call and requesting to leave immediately afterwards, Si Han didn't show any change in his expression. He looked at her glumly, that pitiless pair of eyes like scary black holes with the ability to swallow up the light. "Go back to school?" he asked plainly. The Yi Wanwan from the past probably wouldn't have been able to detect the difference in Si Han, but right now, Yi Wanwan felt something was wrong with Si Han's attitude. Si Han most likely knew about everything and thought that she wanted to go to the hospital to see Gu Yuze. However, she acted like she didn't notice any difference. She carried her school bag and said naturally, Yup, you're busy with your work, so don't bother seeing me off. I'll go back by myself." Chapter 66. The calm before the storm. When Yi Wanwan said that she'd go back herself, Si Han's black hole pupils turned dimmer and the invisible waves beneath his pupils seemed to be gushing out. But in a fleeting moment they were back to normal, as if it was an illusion. Yi Wanwan took his silence as consent, so she walked up to him innocently and gave him a peck on the cheek. "Off I go then. I'll say bye to Grandma first." She walked joyfully towards the house. Immediately after Yi Wanwan left, a terrifying chill and rage erupted. The silent and calm little garden quickly transformed into a hell with dark winds blowing and a palpable feeling of murderous intentions. At that moment, Su Yi's heart had turned into ashes. He kept praying and praying that Yi Wanwan wouldn't do anything stupid. But then he witnessed her running wildly on the road to death. This foolish woman still wanted to go to Gu Yuze. She even thought that master wouldn't find out, treating him like an idiot. Su Yi's forehead dripped cold sweat as he stuttered, Ninth master, should we stop her?" Si Han drew his gaze back from the girl and shut his eyes slowly. The terrifying atmosphere was dispelled the moment his eyes shut. There was a dead silence in the area. Without Si Han's orders, Su Yi didn't dare make a move. At the same time, in the living room, the old madam was filled with dread when she found out that Yi Wanwan was leaving. She really liked this girl and had seen a great transformation in her grandson these 2 days. Naturally, this made her even more satisfied with Yi Wanwan. "Wanwan, I know little Ninth likes to be alone and has a bad temper, but actually, he doesn't want to be this way either. You should also know that little Ninth has trouble sleeping. Think about it, because he gets such little sleep, imagine how horrible he feels. It definitely impacts his temperament as well. But after little Ninth started dating you, I've noticed that his temperament has become gentler. Wanwan, Grandma is truly thankful for you." Thank you for your patience and accommodating little ninth. In the future, if that brat is ruthless and bullies you, let Grandma know anytime and Grandma will definitely be on your side. Thank you, Grandma. Hearing the old lady pouring her heart out to her, Yi-Wan felt very emotional. No matter how respectable and honorable this legendary figure was, in this moment she was just an ordinary grandma. It was a pity that the old lady thought that she and Si-Han were a loving couple. Little did she know that her relationship with Si-Han was akin to a bubble, easily burst with a single touch. Yi-Wan insisted that she didn't want to trouble anyone with her departure. In the end, she called herself a car and left. In the old lady's eyes, Yi-Wan's actions were considerate, but in Su Yi's eyes, it looked like she was shaking them off and eagerly rushing to the hospital to meet Gu Yuze. In the past, Si-Han would never have allowed her to go back to school by herself. But this time, he completely gave in. But the more lenient Si-Han was, the more Su Yi was afraid. The Si-Han now was like the calm before the storm. If Master ordered him to capture her back and tie her up now, that was better than what would happen if he caught her red-handed. I'm afraid Yi-Wan's done for. To be frank, he had really enjoyed these few peaceful days, but unfortunately, they were merely an illusion. On the other side, Yi-Wan was already quite a distance away in her car. When they reached a fork in the road, Yi-Wan suddenly said, "Sir, don't take me to Qinghe High School anymore, head to Rin AI Hospital instead." Chapter 67. Here comes the wolf. Hearing Yi-Wan change the destination all of a sudden, the driver jerked the steering wheel in the opposite direction and headed in the direction of Rin AI Hospital. "Miss, why do you want to go to the hospital suddenly? Are you feeling unwell?" The driver was a little worried, so he asked. "No, it's my boyfriend, he's always having insomnia. I heard that there's a famous senior doctor at Rin AI Hospital and he's really good at treating patients with insomnia, so I'm going there to find out more." "I see, your boyfriend is a lucky man," the driver praised. Yi-Wan smiled, said nothing and stared out of the window blankly. Shortly after, the car reached the entrance of Rin AI Hospital. Yi-Wan looked like her original self. She was wearing a pink dress and conspicuously stood there looking very beautiful. The Shen Mengqi hiding in the dark saw her almost immediately. Seeing how attractive Yi-Wan was, a shred of jealousy flashed in Shen Mengqi's eyes. But seeing that she came obediently as expected, her face filled with disdain and mockery. "So what if you're pretty? You're so dumb you actually got fooled by me." Shen Mengqi relaxed only when she saw with her own eyes that Yi-Wan had walked into Rin AI Hospital. She took out her phone and texted Si-Han. "Mr. C, I was wondering if Wan is there with you right now? I was feeling sick earlier, so I went to the hospital and I happened to see someone that looked like Wan. I'm not sure whether it was her and couldn't get through to her phone either. I'm a little worried. Has she fallen ill?" She obviously wasn't so dumb as to purposely drive a wedge between them. She just wanted Si-Han to find out for himself. Although she didn't want to admit it, Si-Han cared deeply for Yi-Wan, and if he knew that Yi-Wan was ill, he'd definitely come down to the hospital. When that time came, he'd come with a heart full of worries, but see Yi-Wan making out with Gu Yuze tenderly instead. That would be an interesting spectacle for sure. After she sent the text, Shen Mengqi left the hospital with confidence. Yi-Wan, that idiot, still treating me like her best friend. That idiot will never find out it was me even on her deathbed. On the contrary, Shen Mengqi would never have imagined that from the window of the hospital's second floor, Yi-Wan had witnessed everything, from her hiding behind the corner and secretly sending a text, to leaving with a delighted expression. Yi-Wan stood by the window and curled her lips slowly. Of course, she had to make a trip to the hospital and show her face so that Shen Mengqi would play her tricks and continue stirring up trouble between her and Si-Han. Everybody knew about the story of the boy who cried wolf. There was nothing to fear the first and second time, but what about the third and fourth time? If Shen Mengqi kept failing in her plans to sow discord between them, even if she told the truth the next time, Si-Han would no longer believe her. And that's exactly what she wanted. At this moment, in the little garden at the old house, the moment Yi-Wan left, Si-Han remained rooted at the same spot without moving. That is, until the phone on the table rang, indicating a text message from Shen Mengqi. The ringtone of this text message was like the sound of death in Su Yi's ears. Si Han scanned through the contents of the message, cold and without a trace of warmth. His expression didn't change throughout. It was like that pair of black hole-like eyes had swallowed all his emotions. Su Yi peeked and saw that it was a message from Shin Meng-chi. He then looked at Si Han's reaction again and could guess what it was about. The frightening silence lasted for a long time before Si Han picked his phone up and made a call, asking, "Where are you?" Su Yi saw that Si Han had used speed dial and knew that he had called Yi Wanwan. His expression became gray with defeat instantly. This time, no matter if Yi Wanwan was lying or telling the truth, there was no way of coming back from this. Then he heard Yi Wanwan on the receiver replying, "I had some issues, so I went to Ren AI Hospital Midway because I..." Before she could finish, his cold voice interrupted her, "Go to Jean Garden now." After finishing the call, Si Han shot Su Yi an icy look, "Go check." Su Yi was stunned and then nodded his head hurriedly. If things have progressed to this stage, Yi Wanwan knows that she can't hide it anymore and has confessed, but Master doesn't believe her and wants to continue investigating. Chapter 68. You're out of chances. Yi Wanwan was locked up after arriving at Jean Garden. Click! The sound of the lock made her heart jump and she subconsciously tightened her grip around the plastic bag containing the meds she'd obtained from the hospital. Barely 2 weeks had gone by and she was back here again. Even if everything was under control, being trapped in this familiar and luxurious bedroom led to the fear penetrating her soul to annihilate her body rapidly. She had been trapped here for 7 years with an extreme fear of darkness and silence. But eventually, she'd gotten so used to the darkness and dead silence that she started to fear the light and people instead. The scariest thing was not being imprisoned, but that even if freedom was given to her one day, she wouldn't be able to escape from the cage around her heart. Even though she was reborn and returned to life before the tragedy began, she still couldn't escape the memories and shadows from her previous life. Outside, the sound of familiar footsteps came closer and closer, step by step. In such a quiet space, it was unusually clear and terrifying. Creak! The door was pushed open. Looking at the terrible and frightening ghostly figures at the door, Yi Wanwan's pupils suddenly contracted. For a moment, the scene in front of her and the memories of her previous life merged completely. The frightened expression of the girl was like a poison that could corrode a person's heart. All of Si Han's senses and restraints turned into ashes in a flash. In the next second, Yi Wanwan was thrown onto the bed by an enormous force and the bag that was in her tight grip landed on the floor with a crash. Just as she was about to speak, her throat got choked. It was getting more and more challenging to breathe and life was slowly draining away from her body. When she finally regained her breath, she bit down on her tongue hard and her mouth rapidly filled with the taste of blood. "Wanwan, I've said it before. This was the last time. Now, you've run out of chances." Following this, the man's footsteps got further and further away gradually and the sound of the lock clanged again. Once she had been relieved of his presence, Yi Wanwan immediately coughed violently. The fear in her eyes was no longer there, leaving a cold and dim light behind. The study was in total disorder. The big space was frozen, cold and piercing to the bone. The man sat in front of the desk like a weathered sculpture, the violence and sadism eroding the last remnants of humanity on his forehead. In the dead silence, there came a hasty knock on the door suddenly. "Get lost," the furious voice stopped the knock on the door. But soon after, the knocks on the door resumed with urgency. As there was no response, the person knocking directly pushed the door open and entered. The situation in the house was more frightening than he'd imagined. At the sight of the monstrous face and scarlet, beast-like eyes, Su Yi was so scared that he turned pale. However, the issue was so pressing that he had to let the master know. Su Yi forced himself to stay calm and used all the energy he had to find his voice and said quickly, "Ninth Master, I've checked it myself. Ms. Yi indeed went to the hospital Midway and didn't go to school." Clearly sensing the drastic drop in temperature, Su Yi's body was soaked in sweat, but the surveillance camera shows that Ms. Yi didn't go to the emergency room after reaching the hospital but was at the outpatient department registering to see an old Chinese specialist. As if afraid that Si Han hadn't grasped the main point, Su Yi specifically added, from beginning to end, Ms. Yi didn't visit Gu Yuzhe. Chapter 69. It was all a misunderstanding at that point. Su Yi's expression looked somewhat complex. That old Chinese doctor is very famous. He's the most skilled at treating insomnia, and you consulted him at the beginning as well. I've transferred the surveillance footage of Ms. Ye's visit. Take a look yourself. Su Yi opened the surveillance footage on his phone. Yi Wanwan was carrying her school bag and sat in front of the old Chinese doctor with a solemn face. "Little miss, where do you feel unwell?" the old Chinese doctor asked. "Doctor, I'm not the one feeling unwell. I'm here on behalf of someone else," Yi Wanwan answered. "You silly little girl, how could you visit a doctor on someone else's behalf?" The old Chinese doctor furrowed his brows. Yi Wanwan hurriedly explained, "Doc, hear me out. My boyfriend has a serious case of insomnia. He's seen many doctors and tried many methods, but none have worked. Doctor, you're so famous and he definitely came to seek treatment from you before. I'm just here to find out more about insomnia and understand how he feels." The old Chinese doctor was a little surprised by what she said and also looked somewhat moved. "You, silly little girl, are quite thoughtful. There aren't many patients' families that are as caring as you. All right, I'll tell you." "Thank you, doctor." The girl revealed an extremely joyful smile, pulled out a notebook and pen, and took down notes seriously. Seeing that she was so earnest, the old doctor explained a lot of information in detail. The girl's expression was sincere the whole time and asked very specific questions from time to time. "My grandma told me that long-term insomnia would affect a person's temperament, is that right?" The old Chinese doctor nodded. "If it's serious, it wouldn't only harm the body but in the long run, it would also greatly impact a person's character and mental health. This is something they're unable to control, and as a family member, you should try to be more understanding, caring, and patient towards them." "I definitely will. I used to aggravate him in the past." The girl looked very guilty. "Previously, to study for my exams, I slept for only 3 to 4 hours a day continuously for a week. That feeling of being sleep-deprived was really horrible. Doctor, tell me more and teach me how to help him so that he'll feel better." The 10-minute-long footage ended and the room resumed its deathly stillness. The girl's caring words, however, seemed to ring in his ears. Su Yi's heart was full of mixed feelings. He couldn't express how he felt. Ninth Master seemed to have misunderstood Ms. Yi. This deathly stillness went on for an indefinite amount of time when suddenly an ear-piercing screech of a chair rubbing against the floor resounded. When Su Yi regained his senses, the man in front of the desk was already gone. Bedroom on the second floor. Bang! The door was forcefully pushed open by someone. The dusky room was cold and quiet. The girl had remained in the same position he'd left her in before. She had her body curled in fetal position and hadn't moved at all. When she heard the door open, her petite frame started shaking violently. Si Han stood at the same spot, fingers in a tight fist, feet rooted to the ground. His gaze slowly landed on the black plastic bag at the side of the bed, and the contents of the bag sprawled all over the floor. He slowly walked towards the bag, bent over and picked everything up. A few parcels of Chinese herbal medicine, an outpatient record sheet, a pink notebook. Sprawled across the page were the girl's crammed handwritten notes. Chapter 70. How could she not be disgusted? Si Han looked at the things on the floor, at the notebook, at the girl's carefully written notes with such careful strokes, and it was as if someone had stabbed his chest. After packing up the items on the ground carefully, the man stood up and walked towards the girl stiffly. At this moment, the girl was hugging her knees and her head was buried deep. Her cautious and repulsed position isolated herself in her own small world. On the side of her curved neck, there were visible bruises, a ghastly sight. Si Han reached out his hand like he wanted to touch the girl's shoulders. However, as he moved slightly closer, the girl's body started trembling even more. The man pressed his thin lips together, his outstretched hand in midair. After a long while, he decided to retract his hand and slowly took a step back. His eyes didn't leave the girl's body and images in his head kept flashing by. She had told him that she'd thought things through and wanted to try to date him normally. She said she'd work hard to become a sweet melon. She was willing to meet grandma, dressed up demurely on purpose, picked gifts seriously and made the old lady so happy. She knew that he had insomnia, probably asked Grandma about it, then specifically went to the hospital to speak to a specialist and found an experienced old doctor to explain his illness, made notes, bought medication. But in the end, what did she get? It was his violent rage without rhyme or reason, unreasonable tongue-lashing, and indiscriminate hurt. She was afraid of him, disgusted with him. How could she not be afraid? How could she not be disgusted? The man's gaze was pitch black, the chill from his body terrifying, the whole place filled with a suffocating oppression. The girl curled up on the bed noticed the terrifying surroundings and lifted the little head that was buried between her knees while her whole body trembled. The pair of eyes that looked at him were full of fear and helplessness. She murmured, Sorry, I was wrong. I've learned my lesson. I've learned from it. Looking at the girl's alarmed and panicky expression and hearing the girl admitting her mistake, Si-han's expression darkened even more. It was like a giant metal clasp was gripping his heart tightly. After some time, the man clenched his fist and walked to the girl again. Under the extremely fearful gaze of the girl, he carefully and slowly embraced her in his arms. The girl seemed to come to her senses. She sobbed too much to even speak properly. I didn't lie to you, didn't betray you. I went to find a doctor. You couldn't sleep. Si-han hugged the girl tighter. The moment he spoke that single word, the tears which the girl had been holding back for so long rolled down in big hot droplets, soaking his chest. Chapter 71. At least comfort her a little, probably because she'd kept it in for so long. The built-up negative feelings from her previous and current life exploded at that moment. Yi Wanwan's tears couldn't stop flowing, and even after crying for more than half an hour, there were no signs of stopping. Si-han embraced the girl from start till end without speaking a single word or movement. Su-yi chased after Si-han after noticing he was gone and stood by the door at this moment. Watching how badly Yi Wanwan was crying, he felt a bit guilty as well. They'd really misunderstood her this time after all. It went without explanation that she must have been frightened by the master just now. She did everything out of goodwill and yet was misunderstood. How could she not be sad? The good thing was that the truth was sorted out. But master, she's crying so badly, shouldn't you at least comfort her a little? Just standing there like an ice sculpture is scary, all right? For his master, he'd probably reached his limit already. He couldn't really imagine his master comforting the girl. An indefinite amount of time had passed before the man finally loosened his embrace of the girl. His face regained a cold expression and he said in a calm manner, Su-yi, take her back to school. After speaking, he turned and left without a second glance. After Su-yi heard that, he was initially stunned and looked at the back of his master leaving and somehow felt that he looked a bit grim. Su-yi sighed softly, looked at the girl on the bed who was still sobbing and tried his best to speak softly. Ms. Yi, don't cry anymore, don't worry. The misunderstanding has been cleared and master won't bother you. See, he allowed me to take you back to school. After half an hour, Yi Wanwan reached the school gate. Ms. Yi were here. Su-yi stopped the car and went to the back to help her with the door. Yi Wanwan carried her school bag and got off, looking stone-faced. Her little face was still tear-stained. Su-yi looked at the girl in front of him, opening his mouth as if to say something but ended up keeping silent. As the black car slowly left her sight and disappeared into the night, Yi Wanwan's empty and numb eyes regained focus. She stood rooted at the same spot for quite some time before slowly walking towards the school. She didn't return to the dormitory immediately but sat on a long bench by the school's little lake. The cool night wind cut across the surface of the lake and blew against her face, reviving her senses. Not long ago, her past had almost been replayed out, but now, she regained her freedom once again. At first, she merely wanted to beat him at his own game. However, even if everything went according to plan, the fear of Si-han was real and so was the pain she felt previously. Not only this time but the accumulated pain and resentment from both lives. After this episode, she was all burnt out, but after venting, she also felt much better. Fortunately, it was ultimately a near miss and she successfully changed her original course of life, making it through the crisis this time. Chapter 72. his true face revealed. Yi Wanwan wasn't sleepy, so she sat by the lake and pondered about things. As she was lost in thought, a pair of messy footsteps came up behind her. A person walked over grumbling and swearing, then sat down on the bench diagonally behind her. "Damn you, Zhao Xingzhou. You beast! I'm going to the Education Bureau to report you for abusing a student." Psycho. The little lake was very silent at night, so Yi Wanwan heard all of the boys' curses. Hearing this voice and these curses, the person speaking seemed to be the Ling Dong who planted the water bucket on the classroom door to prank her, the godbrother of Cheng Shui. Seems like he was being tortured by Zhao Xingzhou. Zhao Xingzhou really didn't disappoint. He didn't let him off even on the weekend. Yi Wanwan was sitting under the shade of a big tree, so Ling Dong couldn't see her at all. However, Yi Wanwan could see Ling Dong's withered face very clearly under the moonlight. He had 2 huge dark eye circles, a can of beer in his hand, and a messy stack of math exam papers that he was stepping on, leaving black footprints all over them. Yi Wanwan, the ugly freak. She's made me so miserable. Just wait and see. If I don't kill you, my last name isn't Ling. Ling Dong crushed the can of beer, his forehead full of gloom. Hearing her own name, the corners of Yi Wanwan's mouth twitched. How is this my problem? Just because they wanted to prank me, I had to go along with it obediently? This Ling Dong was the school's little bully, renowned for being overbearing and unreasonable. As his father was the school's director, those bullied by him could only swallow their hurt, and even the teachers turned a blind eye and didn't dare to discipline him. It was just his luck to bump into a stubborn teacher like Zhao Xingzhou this time. If it had been anybody else, he'd be let off with just a scolding. If she was targeted by Zhao Xingzhou, her days in school wouldn't be easy. "Oh, ugly freak, you dared to trick even me. You want to play games with me? I'll face you to the death. Let's see if you'll still be so arrogant then." Ling Dong kept calling her an ugly freak and continued his drunken ramblings. When she heard the end of it, Yi Wanwan couldn't hold it in any longer, so she coughed lightly and said, "Ling Dong, you seem to have set your own trap and gotten trampled by Zhao Xingzhou. How is it my fault at all?" At hearing this voice beside him without warning, Ling Dong was so frightened that he fell off the bench. It took him a long time before he climbed back up. With a shaking voice, he said, "Damn. Are you a human or a ghost?" Yi Wanwan was a bit speechless. "Just act as if you saw a ghost." "You're Yi Wanwan?" Ling Dong couldn't see the person opposite clearly, but as he recognized her voice, his expression turned ugly. Not wondering why was Yi Wanwan out so late, the boy immediately spoke with a sullen tone, "Ugly freak. How dare you speak? If it wasn't for you taking your time to get into the classroom the other day, I wouldn't be this miserable. I'm telling you, you're dead. As long as I'm in Qinghe, don't hope of ever having a good day. I'll give you a taste of death." Yi Wanwan rubbed her forehead. Forget it, there was no reasoning with these kids. Watching Yi Wanwan stand up to leave, Ling Dong wasn't satisfied. He picked up the can of beer, staggered to catch up, and grabbed Yi Wanwan's arm. "Ugly freak, I didn't say you could leave. Stay right." Before he could finish, Ling Dong opened his eyes wide suddenly and stared at that unbelievably beautiful little face under the moonlight, immediately dumbstruck. Chapter 73. Love at first sight. In front of him was a girl in a pink dress with long black hair and skin as fair as snow. Looking at those eyes, brighter than the stars in the sky, brimming with reflections of light from the water. She looked as if she just cried, tugging on his heartstrings. If the school beauty, Cheng Shui, was beautiful, then the girl in front of him was like a fallen angel. Ling Dong felt as if his own heart had been hit strongly. His heartbeat echoed continuously in his head, muddling his whole sense of being. Yi Wanwan was used to seeing this stunned expression of his whenever he bumps into her, but there was something different about Ling Dong's expression this time. Ling Dong was very shocked, like he'd just seen a ghost, but then he started blushing, his gaze becoming strange, and finally he released her like he'd been electrocuted. He seemed shy and nervous as he stared at her and stuttered, "You're Yi Wanwan?" Yi Wanwan raised her brows slightly and touched her own face subconsciously, as she recalled that she'd left the old house directly and was dressed well but didn't have any makeup on. She'd definitely give her classmates a scare without any makeup on. Since he'd already seen her, she couldn't deny it. She smiled and said, "I didn't put on any makeup today, sorry to scare you." She turned and walked away casually after speaking. Until Yi Wanwan had left, Ling Dong was still rooted in the same spot as if he was dreaming. What's happening? That girl prettier than Cheng Shui. Was Yi Wanwan the ugly freak? How could that be? Ling Dong hobbled back to the hostel like he was in a fantasy. Upon seeing Ling Dong, 3 other boys from the hostel immediately greeted him. One of them with cropped hair presented one of his precious cigarettes amiably. "Dong, you're back." Watching Ling Dong walking straight to his bunk and sitting down without any reaction, the guy with cropped hair stared. Dong, are you all right? Is something wrong?" The guy on the upper bunk of Ling Dong's bed looked at Ling Dong spaced out and was worried as well. "Dong, don't scare us." A topless boy in oversized pants spat and said angrily, "Damn, that Zhao Xingzhou is a monster. For just pouring a bucket of water on him, does he have to torture you like that? Look at what he's done to our Dong." It was all that ugly freaky Wanwan's fault. "Don't be pissed, don't. We'll teach that brat a lesson tomorrow. We'll help you and Cheng Shui get your revenge." The 3 of them talked busily about vengeance but gradually felt something was fishy with Ling Dong's dazed expression. His whole face was blushing red, from the tips of his ears to his neck, and he kept muttering things like, "Impossible, how could she be so beautiful, and she was simply a goddess." The 3 guys looked at each other. Ling Dong didn't look like he had been tortured by Zhao Xingzhou to the point of being in a trance. Instead, he seemed somewhat like a teenage boy in love. Up until that moment, Ling Dong hadn't heard his roommates, nor had he noticed they were staring at him muttering everything about the face that made his heart beat wildly. In a daze, he suddenly felt something in his palm. He slowly opened to look, and it looked like a small, pink, knitted flower that he'd pulled from Yi Wanwan's clothing by accident. Looking at that little flower, Ling Dong was suddenly wide awake. It wasn't a dream? It's real, that girl really was Yi Wanwan. Yi Wanwan's bare face wasn't only ugly, but instead, she was so beautiful? Nothing makes sense. Chapter 74. A hero to the rescue. Yi Wanwan headed back to her dorm right away and didn't think too much about the episode by the lake. There were only a few months left before the college entrance exams, so she wouldn't be in school for much longer. There was no need to waste her time on these childish games. The next morning, Yi Wanwan reverted back to her outrageous get-up and went to class as usual. Just as she stepped inside, the chaotic classroom became silent in an instant. The students in class stared at her with gleaming eyes and a hopeful expression. Yi Wanwan was a little annoyed. These people made it so obvious. Were they really going to treat her like a fool who didn't know any better? All right, with her previous intellect, she really wouldn't have known any better. Yi Wanwan acted blissfully unaware and walked straight to her seat. With a glance, she realized that there was something not right about her chair. It was covered with a thick layer of colorless glue. If she hadn't looked closely, she wouldn't have seen it and would have sat right on it. With this type of strong glue, a person stuck to the chair would have to remove their pants to get up. Although it wouldn't cause any substantial damage, she'd be embarrassed in front of all her classmates. Yi Wanwan looked at the Xia who was sprawled on the table napping as usual and silently muttered fatale. Just as she pulled out the chair, somebody suddenly rushed up to her side, pushed her aside and then quickly pulled out her chair. The chair was dragged to the front, the sunlight illuminating it clearly so everybody could see the layer of glue on the chair clearly. The Xia that was asleep was woken up by the piercing screech. His irritated gaze swept across Yi Wanwan and Ling Dong, standing in front, and then glanced at the chair. He furrowed his brows. Yi Wanwan didn't notice Xia's reaction. Her brows were raised and she was looking at Ling Dong who'd suddenly appeared. What's the meaning of this? Being stared at by those black pupils, Ling Dong's originally arrogant and defiant expression suddenly froze up. He pulled her chair to his own seat and exchanged it for Yi Wanwan's without saying a word. That wasn't all. Under the stares of all his astonished classmates, Ling Dong reached his arm out again and removed a dead rat from Yi Wanwan's desk drawer. After seeing the dead rat, some timid girls shrieked in disgust. Ling Dong threw the dead rat away expressionlessly and then shone a light from his phone into the drawer to check that there was nothing else inside before telling Yi Wanwan in a low and muffled voice, "Take a seat." He didn't dare to look into Yi Wanwan's eyes after speaking. He went back to his seat, took off his jacket, covered the glue and then simply sat on it. Yi Wanwan. Aside from Yi Wanwan, the whole classroom was in total silence as everybody was confused by Ling Dong's actions. Such absurdity so early in the morning. What's the meaning of this? Why would Ling Dong help Yi Wanwan? Especially Cheng Shui, whose elegant and pretty face was enraged, stared at Ling Dong in disbelief, not believing what she had just seen. Damn. Dong, what's going on? I thought we said that we'd teach that ugly freak a lesson today? Ling Dong's deskmate, the cropped hair guy, asked. Ling Dong's looked slightly annoyed. Shut up. Does it look like I have to explain my actions to you? Oh. His deskmate shut his mouth immediately. Chapter 75. One of my people's. Damn. What's going on? I thought there'd be a good show today. Why would Ling Dong help Yi Wanwan? Who knows? It's totally crazy. Maybe he was put in place by Zhao Xingzhou's torture? How could Ling Dong, this little lord, have any fear? It's good enough if he doesn't make things worse. In the midst of all the discussion, Yi Wanwan sat down on Ling Dong's chair. She had been prepared for trouble, but what happened was beyond her expectations. Had Ling Dong really been put in his place by Zhao Xingzhou's torture? Yi Wanwan vaguely recalled that Ling Dong accidentally saw how she looked without her makeup last night. His actions couldn't be related to that, right? Shortly, the bell indicating the start of lessons rang and the classroom quieted down again. Yi Wanwan didn't give it any further thought. She looked at the phone in her drawer, unfocused. From last night till now, Si Han hadn't contacted her after he sent Su Yi to take her back to school. According to his reaction yesterday, he shouldn't be angry anymore, right? Actually, she did take a risk yesterday after all. If Si Han had completely lost his senses in his fury and locked her up without letting her explain, the consequences would have been dire. Fortunately, her efforts so far hadn't been wasted. Si Han hadn't completely believed Shen Mengqi's words and went to investigate things himself. After class, the students continued to stare in the direction of Yi Wanwan and whispered, after holding things in for an entire lesson. Watching Cheng Shui and 3 of her die-hard followers walking up to Yi Wanwan aggressively, everybody was alert again. Ugly freak, come out. We have something for you. One of the girls with a sharp chin barked harshly. Usually, people called out after class would be brought to the girls' washroom to be bullied. Even though Yi Wanwan didn't want to entertain these childish fights, being bothered all the time affected her mood too. She shot them a cold glare and replied leisurely, "Sure. What are you waiting for? Hurry up." The girl couldn't wait and started to drag her as another girl next to her started pulling her as well. Si Xia, who was lying on the table asleep, looked up and his brows twitched when he saw the scene before him. Just as he was about to speak, a dark and cold voice sounded from behind him. Who said you guys could touch her? Ling Dong stood at the classroom door with a big plastic bag in his hand, his expression terrifying. Although Ling Dong didn't look as handsome as Si Xia, he was good-looking in his own way. It was just that his temperament was completely different from Si Xia's. He was like a rebellious wolf, violence buzzing throughout his body, and was unusually vicious when he fought. People feared him when they saw him every day. His current expression made everybody quiver to the bone. Seeing that Ling Dong was standing behind them with that face, the 3 girls were startled by his scary expression. "Dong? Brother Dong." One of the girls summoned the courage to explain, "Dong, this ugly freak was too hateful. Not only did she snatch up Cheng Shui's role, she also made you suffer so much. We merely wanted to teach her a lesson to avenge you." Ling Dong's gaze swept across the 3 girls and everybody in the classroom. Making sure to enunciate every syllable, he said, "Since none of you understood me just now, let me say it again. From now on, Yi Wanwan is one of my people. Whoever touches her again is going against me, Ling Dong." Chapter 76. Not a fight, but a date. The 3 girls, all the students in class, Yi Wanwan herself was dumbfounded. The 3 girls looked at each other and took a long while to regain their senses. Then they hurriedly pressed on Dong. Brother Dong, what are you saying? What do you mean Yi Wan is one of your people? Dong, did you make a mistake somewhere? Ling Dong's face was filled with annoyance. I meant what I said, literally. Yi Wan is one of my people. Nobody is allowed to touch her. Don't you understand English? If you understand, then get lost already. The three of them were Qing Shui's die-hard followers and were, at the same time, close to Ling Dong. This was the first time Ling Dong had used such a harsh tone with them, and their eyes turned red after being yelled at. At first, they wanted to protest more, but after seeing Ling Dong's terrifying expression, they didn't dare and could only stomp their feet and rush to Qing Shui. After the three of them left, Ling Dong looked at Yi Wan again, and his initial ferocious expression became stiff and raw. After hesitating for a few moments, Ling Dong turned, shoved the big bag of snacks he was holding into Yi Wan's arms, and said in a low voice, "For you?" Yi Wan looked at the snacks, her expression confused as she continued in silence. Ling Dong stood in front of her desk without indicating any intentions of leaving. He looked hesitant to speak, and each time he opened his mouth to say something, he'd swallow his words. This went on a few times before he finally took a deep breath and stuttered, "Yi Wan, are you free tonight after school?" Tonight? A phrase subconsciously appeared in Yi Wan's head, a phrase people usually said whenever they wanted a fight. Don't leave after school. Is he preparing to teach me a lesson himself after school? Ling Dong must have felt that Yi Wan misunderstood, so he quickly added, There's a newly opened barbecue shop near school. Do you want to go together? My treat. All the students crowded around. Damn, why is this turning more and more bizarre? Yi Wan furrowed her brows with all her strength. What's going on? It's not a fight, but the date? Wait. Sorry, Ling Dong, I don't understand at all. What kind of trick is this? Yi Wan was straight to the point. Actually, everybody crowding around didn't understand either. It was understandable if Ling Dong didn't dare to touch Yi Wan because of Zhao Xingzhou, but even so, he didn't have to go so far as to say things like Yi Wan was one of his people, right? And now, he's even asking her out for dinner tonight? What exactly happened in those short 2 days off from school? Hearing Yi Wan's words, Ling Dong's face turned ugly as he said unhappily, "It's not a trick." Yi Wan smiled. Ling Dong, straightforward people don't resort to insinuations. What on earth are you thinking? Just come out with it. Ling Dong stood and stared at her, his knuckles clenched so tightly that they started cracking. Just as Yi Wan thought that he was going to hit her, she heard him suddenly say, "Yi Wan, I like you." Yi Wan was stunned. Huh? Cough. Si Xia, who was watching nonchalantly at the side, couldn't hold back anymore. He choked and started coughing violently. All the students in the classroom gasped, and everyone looked like they had just seen a ghost. Damn, what did I just hear? Dong actually confessed to that ugly freak, Yi Wan. Ling Dong's friend's jaw nearly fell off. Another guy's face was filled with shock. Dong, are you crazy? Chapter 77. Boyfriend material. Yi Wan was caught off guard as she was confessed to in front of everybody. At that moment, her heart was in despair. She just kept thinking that it's all over. She'd recently escaped death and gone through a disaster. Who knew that right after, Ling Dong would cause more trouble? Where had it all gone wrong? Could it be that to take revenge on me, Ling Dong plans to dump me after winning me over? Yi Wan quickly disregarded this possibility, since this would involve too much sacrifice on the part of the enemy himself. As long as Ling Dong wasn't out of his mind, he'd never use this kind of sacrificial method to take revenge. This couldn't really be because of last night, could it? If this wasn't a trick, this could be the only reason. He'd only seen her without makeup, and besides, it was a quick glance. She hadn't thought much of it at the time, and also thought that since Ling Dong was tipsy, he might not have seen her clearly. Who knew that just a glance would land her in such a big trouble? This devilish, superficial world. Ling Dong was quite popular in school, and news of this big shot confessing his love for Qing He's infamous ugly girl would definitely spread through the school within half a day. It'd only be a matter of time before Si Han found out too. With Si Han's temperament, just this incident alone could cause all her efforts to go down the drain. Yi Wanwan thought she'd have at least a few days of peace. Her heart was so tired that she didn't want to speak. Ling Dong, I think you need to see an eye doctor. Yi Wanwan rested her hand on forehead and spoke feebly. What Yi Wanwan had said echoed everyone's thoughts. Everybody nodded. Ling Dong's die-hard followers even silently added, not just the eye doctor but a psychologist as well. Ling Dong wrinkled his brows and stared at the girl. He enunciated every single word he said clearly. Yi Wanwan, I'm serious. Yi Wanwan naturally wanted to reject. She couldn't let anybody get a hold over her. But she couldn't possibly talk about her boyfriend in front of everyone. If the school found out about her puppy love, that would be a violation of school rules and she'd be penalized again. She didn't have a school director as her father like Ling Dong, so she couldn't act impulsively. Thus, Yi Wanwan could only say, sorry, whether this is a trick or for real, I have no interest in you. Ling Dong stiffened up. Why? Why aren't you interested in me? Yi Wanwan saw that Ling Dong was standing there stubbornly, his expression unusually serious and looking like he wouldn't give up without an answer. She could only reply, because you aren't boyfriend material. What are your standards? How am I lacking? Tell me I can change. Ling Dong said immediately. Is Dong under a curse? This is definitely not Dong, he must be possessed. Damn, what did this ugly freak do to Dong? Everyone thought at first that Ling Dong would definitely be enraged after Yi Wanwan's rejection. Who knew that he'd so submissive and even offer to change for her? Ling Dong's die-hard followers were completely confused, in addition to the students gathered around them. Everyone felt that their senses had been assaulted by an atomic bomb. Yi Wanwan sighed. Ling Dong, don't blame me, this was what you asked for? Thus, Yi Wanwan replied, my first standard is, be at least 1800 times better looking than Si Xia. Ling Dong was stunned for a long while before regaining his senses. Are you kidding? Si Xia, who'd been dragged into this for no reason at all. Yi Wanwan's face was grave. I'm serious. Chapter 78. More like he's blind by the end of the day. This explosive news had spread throughout Qinghe and even other high schools in the area. Everybody knew about the big shot of Qinghe, Ling Dong, being rejected by the ugliest girl, Yi Wanwan. They also knew about that crazy ugly girl shooting her mouth off that her standards for boyfriends were to be better looking than Si Xia. The school's hall, Ling Dong sat far away at the last row, watching devoutly as Yi Wanwan rehearsed at the front. Even after being rejected by Yi Wanwan on the spot, he still refused to give up. On the window seat next to him was Si Xia. Ling Dong passed a cigarette over. Si Xia looked down lazily and refused it. Seeing that he didn't take it, Ling Dong lit the cigarette himself and took a long drag. Then, he said sternly, Si Xia, Yi Wanwan is the girl I'm after. If we're brothers, then don't go overboard with the kissing scene. You gotta pretend. Si Xia's indifferent expression seemed to crack for a moment. You're overthinking it. Ling Dong also felt that he was overthinking it, since Si Xia couldn't even get close to Yi Wanwan's face. So, Yi Wanwan's current getup was extremely safe. So, Ling Dong lightly coughed. Si Xia, why don't we strike a deal? Give this role to me, alright? I'll sort this out with the teacher. Since little Shui doesn't want you to be intimate with Yi Wanwan, then both of you shouldn't act. I'll cover for you instead. Isn't this the best of both worlds? After hearing this, Si Xia opened his eyes widely and looked at him, seemingly considering his offer. Ling Dong's best friends couldn't tolerate it anymore and they rushed to Ling Dong with frightened expressions. Dong, calm down. Why were you so pessimistic? Another guy's face was also bitter. Dong, what happened? When did your taste become so particular? While the two brothers were fussing, Ling Dong recalled yesterday evening's fleeting glimpse and his ears immediately turned red. Initially, he wanted to defend himself, but finally, he only scolded them gruffly. What do you guys know? He'd never tell anybody the truth. He liked the feeling of being the only one who knew her secret. Anyway, if everybody knew, he'd have a lot more rivals. Dong. Cheng Shui quickly walked to Ling Dong, so angry that her beautiful little face looked distorted. Dong, what exactly are you doing? Don't tell me that you really fell in love with that ugly freak, Yi Wanwan. She wouldn't tolerate it even if Ling Dong took Si Xia's place. How could Ling Dong be together with that ugly freak Yi Wan? Ling Dong looked at the raging Ching Shui. Yeah, I really fell for her. Ching Shui choked. Are you crazy? You could fall for anyone but you fell for her? Do you know what everyone is saying about you? They're saying that your brain is fried. Then my brain is fried. Ling Dong blew out smoke with a smug expression. Is his brain fried? More like he's blind. Si Xia, what do you think? Ling Dong looked at Si Xia again and asked nervously. At this moment, someone in front yelled, Si Xia, it's your turn. Si Xia's back stiffened and he looked at Yi Wan's bloody red lips like she'd just swallowed a child. After a long while, he said, I'll consider it. He glanced at the time on his watch and hurriedly said, I've got to go. Chapter 79. Do I look single? As Si Xia had to run at the last minute, the final act couldn't be rehearsed, and so, everybody left. He must have scared Si Xia, so he ran off to hide. Speaking of which, Si Xia wouldn't really give the role of the prince to Ling Dong, would he? I think it's possible. If someone was a sucker and volunteered to cover for him, it wouldn't make sense not to take the opportunity. I couldn't tell that the ugly freak, Yi Wan, had such cunning. What magic potion did she give Ling Dong? In the small hall, the girls were still secretly discussing amongst themselves, but once Ling Dong shot a sinister glare across at them, they all turned pale instantly and quickly packed up to leave. After glaring at those people, Ling Dong walked to Yi Wan. His ferocious expression immediately became stiff and uncertain. It's fine if you don't want to have dinner with me, I'll walk you back to your dormitory. Yi Wan furrowed her brows. Ling Dong, I've told you before. Ling Dong immediately interrupted her. I know I'm not good-looking enough, but I'll treat you really well. You can't just go by my looks. Hearing that, the corners of Yi Wan's mouth twitched. Doesn't he see the irony in saying this? You have feelings for me all of a sudden because you saw how I looked without makeup last night, right? Yi Wan asked bluntly. Ling Dong didn't deny it and nodded. Yup. Yi Wan raised her brows. So you liked me just for my looks? Ling Dong pursed his lips. I admit that I really like your face. You're really beautiful. And a beautiful girl is a man's desire. I don't think there's anything wrong with liking you because of the way you look. Yi Wan was slightly dumbfounded by Ling Dong's confidence and courage, and she could only reply, Actually, I have a boyfriend already. What did you say? Upon hearing that, Ling Dong's expression changed. After a long time, he calmed down. You don't have to be like this. Yi Wan was helpless. Do I look single? Ling Dong frowned. That's not what I meant, just. She couldn't blame him for not believing her. After all, Yi Wan had always worn such terrifying makeup. How could she possibly have a boyfriend? Your boyfriend fulfills your requirement? Ling Dong asked. Yi Wan nodded her head with certainty. Yes. But after Yi Wan said that, Ling Dong's face instantly turned black and was even more convinced that she was lying. Yi Wan, you don't have to find any more excuses to lie to me. You have the right to reject me and I have the right to chase you. I won't give up. Yi Wan sighed. Then what should I do to make you believe I told the truth? Why does everybody doubt that I have a boyfriend? They're all too judgmental with appearances. Don't they understand that someone with exotic taste could actually like a girl like me? Ling Dong looked at Yi Wan and gave it some thought before replying, Unless I see him with my own eyes. See him with your own eyes? Bringing Si Han to meet a boy who likes me and is currently wooing me. Do I want to die? It's not impossible to get a substitute boyfriend to meet Ling Dong. Yi Wan seriously hesitated for a long time before finally looking at Ling Dong and asked tentatively, You're sure that you'll give up after seeing him? Ling Dong didn't fall into her trap and replied cautiously, Of course, if he's really outstanding like you said, 1,800 times better looking than Si Xia. All right, it looks like randomly dragging a person to cover up for me is impossible. Where can I find a guy 1,800 times better looking than Si Xia? Fine, let me think about it. My boyfriend is pretty busy. I'll let you know when I've made an appointment, Yi Wan replied. Ling Dong went along with it without a worry. Sure. Chapter 80. Ruining the picturesque view. Ling Dong insisted on personally escorting Yi Wan back to the dormitory, and you could imagine what the walk back was like. Onlookers could only see a tall and handsome boy in a basketball outfit, following in the footsteps of a girl next to him like a guardian angel, completely winning over any teenage girl's heart. However, the girl whom he was escorting ruined the picturesque view completely with her scary, explosive hair, thick smoky makeup and bright red bloody lips. It was an awful sight to behold. Oh my God! That ugly freak, Yi Wan, actually has a suitor. Not to mention that her suitor is actually the big boss of Qinghe. I thought that was just a rumor. This is unbelievable. Amongst the crowd of onlookers, Shen Mengqi looked at both of them from afar. Seeing the way Qinghe's big shot was so attentive to Yi Wan, her face stiffened for a moment. She thought that she'd see Yi Wan looking devastated today, but who knew that she'd be totally fine, making such a big splash at school? At the entrance of the girls' dormitory, after Ling Dong left, Shen Mengqi hurriedly ran towards Yi Wan and looked in the direction of Ling Dong's retreating back. She asked hesitantly with concern, Wan, what's going on between you and Ling Dong? At that moment, Shen Mengqi had two girls behind her. The girl on the left was in a white Chanel ladylike skirt and stood there proudly, looking disapprovingly at Yi Wan. She said with condescension, on one hand you're getting ideas about Xia and on the other, you're hooking up with Ling Dong. You seriously have no shame. Hearing what Jiang Yanran said, Shen Mengqi felt pleased. She hid away her joyful expression and warned Jiang Yanran affectionately, Yanran, don't say that about Wan, she isn't that sort of person. They're probably just ordinary friends. Jiang Yanran's delicate little face was scornful and full of disdain. How can they be ordinary friends? He's already confessed in public and even acted as her guardian angel. How is this normal for ordinary friends? The average-looking girl in her school uniform on the right side of Shen Mengqi said sarcastically, how does this ugly freak even hook up with a man when she looks so hideous? How does she do it? The commotion with Shen Mengqi's group caused quite a few girls to crowd around to join in on the criticism. After hearing what Fang Qin said, the crowd of onlookers looked at each other and speculated, Tisk, could it be her skills in bed? Shen Mengqi protected her anxiously, there must be a misunderstanding. Jiang Yanran folded her arms, seeing that Shen Mengqi spoke up for Yi Wan and scowled, Mengqi, why are you still hanging out with this kind of person? Don't you find her gross? Shen Mengqi gloated beneath her eyes, but on the surface, she acted like she was in a difficult position, being sandwiched between Yi Wan and Jiang Yanran. Yanran, don't say that, Wan is actually quite pitiful. With her family the way it is, I can't possibly leave her when she's at rock bottom. Jiang Yanran sneered, Mengqi, you're too kind and too soft-hearted. As the saying goes, that miserable man must have some flaw causing all the misery. Her family is a wreck because of her father's wickedness, her own corrupted behavior, and her complicated personal life. Is this kind of person worthy of your sympathy? She's so cunning, sitting next to Xia even after cheating on the exam and bumping Qing Shui out of her rightful place in the show. She's even capable of hooking up with the boss of Qinghe. All the other girls crowded around nodded in agreement and condemned her. Chapter 81. Shouldn't you know best? Yi Wan watched coldly as Shen Mengqi used Jiang Yanran and Fang Qin as ammo and continuously fired shots at her. She couldn't help but sneer in her heart. This was familiar to her. It was just like this in her previous life as well. Shen Mengqi hid at the back and pretended to be the good guy each time while Jiang Yanran and Fang Qin stepped forward in her place to fight. Previously, she'd shared a dorm with Shen Mengqi, Jiang Yanran, and Fang Qin. Her relationship with Jiang Yanran wasn't so bad at the beginning while Fang Qin was a complete pushover. She didn't dare to offend anybody. So, she didn't know Jiang Yanran and Fang Qin slowly started to exclude her and requested the school for a change of dorms. It was a long time before she found out that there were rumors that she was always being picked up in luxurious cars and had intimate relationships with people outside school because of her sugar daddy. As the rumors about her spread, nobody wanted to live with her and so, she was switched to a room by herself. It was easy to guess where all these rumors came from and why Jiang Yanran and Fang Qin believed them. Yi Wan smiled faintly and glanced at Shen Mengqi. You still want to pretend to be innocent? I want to see how Jiang Yanran and Fang Qin react after seeing the true face of this kind and innocent girl. Shen Mengqi was good at manipulating people's hearts. Her two-face tactics managed to create quite a few connections for her, and she stepped on all these people, one by one, to climb higher and higher. Of course, she wasn't the only one. Jiang Yanran was one of them as well. Her father was a veteran in the entertainment circle, and the Jiang Yanran of the future was an internationally known director. The film which led Shen Mengqi to stardom was directed by her. However, this talented director's fate was tragic in the end. During the peak of her career, she committed suicide by slitting her wrist and died in the bathtub at home. As for her cause of death, there were many speculations. The reported cause was depression, but the truth was that her husband Song Zihang had cheated on her, and the mistress was her good friend, the lead actress whom she had groomed herself, Shen Mengqi. Jiang Yanran and Song Zihang grew up together. Jiang Yanran had always loved Song Zihang deeply, but Song Zihang only loved her like a sibling and married her because of the pressure from his parents. Jiang Yanran only found out on her deathbed that the person who'd captured Song Zihang's heart was actually the person she was closest to and trusted the most. At this time 7 years ago, Jiang Yanran wasn't dating Song Zihang yet, but Song Zihang and Shen Mengqi were already fooling around way before that. Like the way she used to tackle her brother, Shen Mengqi's way of dealing with men was to not accept but also not to reject. She'd keep them hanging, waiting for their anticipation to spike and reaping the biggest gains. She also especially enjoyed the thrill of stealing men away from others. As all of these thoughts swirled around in her head, Yi Wanwan replied nonchalantly, "Mengqi, shouldn't you know best about what's going on between me and Ling Dong?" "Me? I've only just found out." Shen Mengqi's face was filled with confusion. She wasn't sure why, but Yi Wanwan's expression made her feel a little uneasy. Yi Wanwan replied with certainty, "I told you before that I overheard Ling Dong losing a bet to some of his friends, so he had to court me. At first, I thought they were joking. I didn't think that Ling Dong would really court me. Don't you remember?" Hearing what Yi Wanwan said about Ling Dong courting her due to a lost bet, the onlookers suddenly understood. If that's the case, everything makes sense. "When did you say that?" Shen Mengqi furrowed her brows. Chapter 82. She reveals her true nature. Just as Shen Mengqi was about to deny what Yi Wanwan had said, Yi Wanwan glanced at Jiang Yanran inadvertently, then gave a thoughtful expression and reminded Shen Mengqi, "It was the end of last month. Weren't you with Song Zihang at the amusement park? It was probably too loud, so maybe you couldn't hear me clearly?" The moment Shen Mengqi heard these words, her face turned pale and she looked at Jiang Yanran in panic. Damn it. She did go to the amusement park with Song Zihang last month, and that time, Yi Wanwan had called her for some reason. As she was enjoying Song Zihang's attention, she didn't have the strength to entertain Wanwan, so she simply sent her off with a few words and hung up. But how did Yi Wanwan know where I was? Could it be that I accidentally blurted it out? Damn, and this dumb girl had to talk about this in front of Jiang Yanran. Sure enough, Jiang Yanran's expression changed immediately. "What did you say? Last month, Shen Mengqi and Song Zihang went to the amusement park?" Fang Qin was also a little shocked. It was Yanran's birthday that day. Yanran especially invited Song Zihang and was prepared to confess her love to him. In the end, Song Zihang didn't show up, and you also said that you couldn't make it since you were sick. Why were you with Song Zihang that day? The girls around them were all stunned as well. Jiang Yanran likes Song Zihang? Not many people knew about this, but Shen Mengqi was Jiang Yanran's roommate and they were very close. There was no way she didn't know. Since Shen Mengqi was clearly aware that Jiang Yanran liked Song Zihang and that she was prepared to confess her love to him on her birthday, why would Shen Mengqi lie to Jiang Yanran about feeling sick and going out with Song Zihang? The expression of the onlookers staring at Shen Mengqi changed in an instant. Going behind a good friend's back to seduce the person she likes? Completely shameful. Yi Wanwan heard Fang Qin's words and immediately looked anxious, like she had said something wrong, but her eyes were gleaming. Did I say something wrong? Saying those words increased her credibility. As everybody knew that Shen Mengqi and Yi Wanwan were on very good terms, Jiang Yanran trusted those rumors about Yi Wanwan that Shen Mengqi said previously. On the contrary, She also believed what Yi Wanwan had just accidentally revealed. Furthermore, Jiang Yanran wasn't a fool. She had her suspicions as well but wasn't completely sure. Sure enough, Jiang Yanran immediately took out her phone with shaky hands and opened the message Song Zihang posted on his moments at the end of last month. Song Zihang had set a mood. Love of my life, I'll wait for you to graduate. The accompanying picture was a photo taken at the amusement park. There were no real people in the photo but only two elongated shadows of a guy and girl. This obviously meant that Song Zihang had confessed his love for the girl, but the girl had told him that they could only be together after her graduation. After her birthday, Jiang Yanran saw this message and knew that Song Zihang didn't go to her birthday party because he wanted to confess his love to a girl whom he liked for a long time. But she never would have expected that the true love Song Zihang hid from her, the person she really wanted to find out, was someone she actually viewed as her best friend, Shin Mengqi. No wonder Song Zihang never told me who it was. The person he was protecting so fiercely was actually just by my side. At that moment, Jiang Yanran stared at Shin Mengqi in disbelief. Shin Mengqi, tell me, what's going on here? The person that Song Zihang liked all this time is you? Chapter 83. You need two hands to clap. Shin Mengqi never expected that a thoughtless remark from Yi Wanwan would land her in such big trouble. She wished she could tear her apart on the spot. But since everything was already out in the open, she could only suppress her anger and plead, Yanran, listen to me, it's not what you think. I had a reason for being with Song Zihang that day. I did it for you. Oh, so the person who was with him that day was really you. So you're admitting it? The person that Song Zihang liked all along is you. Jiang Yanran started laughing hysterically all of a sudden. I even shared all my feelings with you every day like a fool, shared with you my thoughts on the identity of the girl that Song Zihang liked. Was it entertaining for you to watch me be so stupid? To watch me love him to death while the person he liked was you? Do you feel accomplished? You clearly knew that I had prepared so long to confess my love for him on my birthday and that I was so nervous I couldn't sleep for countless nights. Knowing all that, you still went out with him that day behind my back and now you dare to say that you were doing it for me? Shen Mengqi hurriedly replied, I wanted to make it clear to him. Jiang Yanran sneered and looked at Song Zihang's post on her phone. Then she forcefully shoved her phone onto Shin Mengqi's face. Make it clear? You made it clear like that? Shen Mengqi's nose had been jolted so hard by the phone that tears started flowing. She covered her face and said, Yanran, let me explain. I told him that I only wanted to focus on my studies and rejected him. But he may have misunderstood what I meant and thought that I wanted to be with him after graduation. Listening to Shen Mengqi's excuse, Jiang Yanran's face turned gloomier. She said with a face of full rage, Shut up. Song Zihang told me himself. He said that the girl admitted to having feelings towards him, that you kissed him yet you're still trying to defend yourself. Get lost. I don't want to hear any more about the both of you. Disgusting. That day, she had gone to find Song Zihang and saw for herself that his eyes were filled with happiness. He told her that the person he liked had accepted his love. If it weren't for Shen Mengqi giving him hope, why would he have that sort of reaction? Shen Mengqi didn't expect that Song Zihang would tell Jiang Yanran about this, so her face went pale and she was speechless. Looking at Shen Mengqi's reaction, the onlookers understood everything. After Jiang Yanran finished talking, she forcibly pushed through the crowd and staggered away. Fang Qin looked at Jiang Yanran hesitantly and then turned to Shen Mengqi. In the end, she hurriedly chased after Jiang Yanran. The crowd had initially gathered to watch a spectacle involving Yi Wanwan but unexpectedly bumped into this huge news about two girls fighting over a boy. They all glared at Shen Mengqi and started whispering. I really couldn't tell that Shen Mengqi could do something like that. She looks so simple-minded. She knew that Jiang Yanran liked Song Zihang all along but still hooked up with Song Zihang behind her back. She's really cruel. Maybe it was one-sided and Song Zihang was the one chasing her? It takes two hands to clap, okay? Didn't you hear what Jiang Yanran said about the girl voluntarily kissing Song Zihang? That's true. Yi Wanwan stood at the same spot and watched silently at the back of Jiang Yanran staggering off, and she felt a strange sense of kinship as if they suffered from the same disease. This person, Jiang Yanran, drew a clear line between her friends and foes and showed intense feelings for both, as shown by the hatred towards her and the intense love towards Song Zihang. The Jiang Yanran from her previous life insisted on being with Song Zihang even after she found out he didn't like her. She even begged her parents to pressure him and was finally met with a tragic ending. Would anything change this time after finding about Song Zihang and Shen Mengqi in advance? What would her choice be? Would she continue to forgive him or would she let go? However, this was no longer something she had the energy to care about. She still needed to figure out how to deal with Ling Dong. Her words just now had tampered down the school rumors and dragged Shen Mengqi down, but she still had to deal with Si Han. What should I do? Call him and ask if he can help me ward off a suitor. Chapter 84. Treat him as my own brother. While she was thinking, she felt Shen Mengqi glaring fiercely in her direction. Yi Wanwan raised her brows innocuously and asked leisurely, Mengqi, I didn't know things would turn out like that. You won't blame me, will you? Shen Mengqi was so pissed listening to all the nasty whispers around her, but she could only force herself to hold it in and hide the darkness beneath her eyes. She forced a laugh. Wanwan, why would I blame you? You didn't do it on purpose. Shen Mengqi spoke through gritted teeth and her eyes swept across the people who remained. Then, she explained to her urgently, actually, Yan Ran misunderstood me. Why would I steal her sweetheart? Song Zihang did in fact like me and has always been courting me, but I've never responded to him and even went to make things clear with him. He took the chance and kissed me when I wasn't paying attention. I didn't make the first move, I wasn't expecting it at all, I was afraid that Yan Ran would misunderstand, so I kept it from her, but who could have guessed that since Yan Ran was gone and Song Zihang wasn't there, nobody knew the truth. Shen Mengqi tried to smooth everything over and pushed the blame onto Yi Wanwan instead. Yi Wanwan didn't give the game away either. She responded as if she just had a sudden revelation. That's what I said, the person you like is obviously my brother. Shen Mengqi was startled by what she said and then corrected her sternly. Wanwan, don't spout nonsense, I've always treated Mu Fan as my own older brother. I liked him only as an older brother. Now that Star Entertainment under the Shun family was thriving, she'd become a big star in future. With a bright future ahead of her, there would be countless boys chasing her. She didn't want to have anything to do with that good-for-nothing loser, Yi Mu Fan. She was holding on to him only because he had some value she could use. What Shen Mengqi said about treating Yi Mu Fan like her own brother was enough to make Yi Wanwan choke in disgust. As if she didn't know what Shen Mengqi was truly thinking about. She sneered in her heart and asked suspiciously, really? I personally mailed out the love letter you gave my brother. The letter was very mushy, something like, I fell in love with you when I first saw you, you are the perfect God in my heart. It turns out I was wrong. That's considered liking someone as a brother? And I thought you looked down on my brother because of what happened to my dad. The attentive crowd suddenly let out a sigh, revealing that they understood clearly, and they looked at Shen Mengqi with even more disgust. With regards to Shen Mengqi's explanation, they were doubtful of her and most still stood by Jiang Yanran's side. Hearing what Yi Wanwan said now, they suddenly felt that Shen Mengqi was indeed guilty of despising the poor and seeking favor with the rich. Yi Wanwan's elder brother, Yi Mu Fan, was also a popular figure in Qinghe previously, and many people knew about Shen Mengqi chasing after him. Now she's saying that she views him as a brother? Who would believe her? Shen Mengqi was stunned. Wanwan, that was so long ago, I was still young and ignorant. I didn't know what love was. Also, how can I possibly distance myself from you and Mu Fan because of what happened to your family? If those were my intentions, why would I be so close to you and even help your brother get into my father's company? Shen Mengqi suddenly gained some confidence. She laughed and said, other than his hobby of gambling, Mu Fan's quite hardworking at work. My dad even complimented him a few days ago. As long as Mu Fan works hard, my dad will never treat him badly. Chapter 85. Took advantage of him. Shen Mengqi acted like she'd blurted out Yi Wanwan's brother's gambling habits by accident. though her seemingly sincere tone had an obvious superiority to it. Hearing this, the blood in Yi Wanwan's heart surged, resulting in a taste of iron in her throat. In the past, Shen Hongbin was one of her father's footmen, but now, her proud brother was reduced to being a slave for the Shen family. He thought that he was making a sacrificing for love and worked hard for the Shen family, even helping them produce for a big group of popular artists. Due to the advantages gained from Si Han, the A-list director, Jiang Yanran, and her brother who was known globally as the God of Style consultant, the Shen family's company thrived. Their status even kept up with the Yi family in the entertainment business 7 years in the future. As for Yi Wanwan's brother, in order to win Shen Mengqi's hand in marriage, he tired himself out and contracted many illnesses at a young age. In the end, his body collapsed. After his value had been squeezed dry, he was kicked out by the Shen family. The Shen family didn't want to be the subject of ridicule, so they got people to frame him of breaking an unspoken entertainment business rule, causing him to lose his reputation, be blacklisted by everybody in the entertainment circle, resulting in great despair to him. She was able to make Jiang Yanran see Shen Mengqi's true self but couldn't get her own brother to regain his senses. In the past, her brother was also very charming himself. He could go through 1,000,000 pretty girls without being tempted. He had innumerable girlfriends but then fell for Shen Mengqi. He treated Shen Mengqi specially, spoiled her and treated her better than his own sister. With her ruined relationship with her brother now, if she talked bad about Shen Mengqi, not only would he not believe her, it would also worsen their relationship. Until she found someone who could expose Shen Mengqi and allow her brother to thoroughly see the evidence of the Shen family's true colors, then could he be saved. However, it's okay to take it slow. Jiang Yanran was just the beginning. Looking at Shen Mengqi, Yi Wanwan acted surprised and said, "My brother is a top style consultant and has the title of the God of Style in the industry. When Global Entertainment, the rival of Imperial Sky, came to poach him, he didn't even agree to go over. Who knew that some casual words from you could persuade him to switch to your company?" Although the Shen family's Polystar Entertainment completely crushed Global Entertainment 7 years in the future and became on par with the Yi family's Imperial Sky, currently the Shen family's company was still lagging far behind these two dominant forces. Once those words had been spoken, the girls around them naturally began to follow the direction of Yi Wanwan's thinking. If Shen Mengqi and Yi Mu Fan really had nothing going on, why would Yi Mu Fan be so submissive to her words, give up the opportunity with the leading Global Entertainment and run over to Polystar? Also, what Yi Wanwan said was obviously hinting that the Shen family took advantage of him while still acting as if they were doing him a favor. Shen Mengqi's face changed slightly. She forced a smile and said, "After all, Mu Fan and I have known each other for ages, so he trusts whatever I say. Even though Polystar isn't as big as Global, it has potential for growth. Mu Fan is very talented, but after you know what happened with your father, it's no longer so easy for him to work with a big company. Oh, Wanwan, I'll talk to you again soon. I'm worried about Yanran. I'm going to go look for her." Shen Mengqi never expected that Yi Wanwan would be so difficult today. Even after giving her best effort in her verbal match with Yi Wanwan in front of the crowd, she was left with almost no room to refute her. To prevent Yi Wanwan from making an irrefutable counter, Shen Mengqi hurriedly found an excuse and left. Chapter 86. I am no god. Yi Wanwan watched as Shen Mengqi fled and the corners of her lips curled upwards a little. After what happened today, no matter how Shen Mengqi tried to explain or hide her behavior, everybody would have a changed impression of her and her attitude. According to her understanding of Shen Mengqi, she was probably thirsting for revenge after suffering such a big defeat. Back at her dorm, Yi Wanwan immediately took out her phone and looked up Si Han's number. She decided to take a risk one more time. To Si Han, lying and running away were the greatest sins, so this was probably tame in comparison. What was there to lose by being honest? At the same time, just as Yi Wanwan expected, Shen Mengqi was boiling inside. Jiang Yanran and Fang Qin weren't in the dorm. She looked at her face, which had been smashed by the phone. It was rapidly swelling up. With one furious sweep of her arm, she sent everything on the table crashing to the ground. Damn it, This is all that dumb Yi Wanwan's fault. That dummy actually dared to bring up my old flame, Yi Mu Fan. Yi Mu Fan is only a dog in my family's company now. How can he compare? He's like a toad wanting to be a swan. Yi Wanwan, I definitely won't let you off so easy. Shen Mengqi pulled out her phone with a gloomy expression. She sneered and quickly drafted a message. Mr. C, Wanwan's been hanging out with some bad company lately. She's very close to a troublemaker at school. She clearly knows that he has bad intentions. I'm worried that Wanwan will be foolish and get tricked by him. I really don't understand why she keeps doing things to harm her relationship with you when you're such a good person and treats her so well, Mr. C. Shen Mengqi twisted the truth with just a few words. On the surface, she acted like she cared about Yi Wanwan's safety, but in reality, she actually didn't care at all. When it came to snitching on people, Shen Mengqi was top-notch. Aside from this message, she didn't forget to send over some photos of the two of them walking together. This allowed her to finally let off some steam. She didn't know what went wrong yesterday. Yi Wanwan was able to go back to school like usual. But this time, with evidence in place, she would get her for sure. Late at night, Jean Garden. Su Yi stared at the door that had been shut for an entire day and night. He paced around anxiously. What should I do? Ninth Master has locked himself in the room for 1 day and 1 night already. Dr. Mo, aren't you a top psychologist? Think of something. Mo Xian folded his arms and leaned against the wall opposite. He was astonished. I'm a doctor, not a god. Does he think I'm omnipotent? Anyway, I'm completely useless with Si Han. There's nothing we can do, right? While Su Yi was freaking out, there was suddenly the sound of an incoming text nearby. Su Yi followed the direction of the sound and realized it was the phone Si Han threw on the floor. He picked it up to take a look and saw that there were many new message notifications on the screen. They were all from Shen Mengqi. This woman is some lingering ghost. I already have enough to deal with. Su Yi cursed silently and clutched the phone tightly to prevent Si Han from hearing. Mo Xian looked at the phone and pondered slightly before saying, Go and check what's going on with Yi Wanwan, maybe she can lure Ninth Master out. Su Yi's face turned black after he heard that. Did they have to use such a terrifying method to lure the Ninth Master out? But there was no other way. If Master keeps refusing food and drink, how can his body take it? It looked like they could only fight poison with poison. Chapter 87. The boy chasing after Wanwan, and so, Su Yi quickly got someone to check up on Yi Wanwan. A short while later, the investigation concluded. There was a boy in school who was courting Yi Wanwan openly and the whole school knew about it. Su Yi was on the verge of breaking down. Yi Wanwan was simply a disaster and the consequences were too terrifying. There's someone in school that's openly chasing Ms. Yi. Dr. Mo, should we tell Ninth Master about it? Su Yi asked with a sullen face. Normally, when Yi Wanwan spoke to other guys, Ninth Master flared up. But now, there was someone who dared to chase her. How could he continue to let Yi Wanwan wander about freely? If the two of them fought again, he wanted desperately to hide this from Master. Mo Xian went blank for a while. Are you sure? With the way Yi Wanwan looks, she's still able to attract a suitor? Su Yi nodded his head sternly. It's true. Also, it's been said that the guy is Qing He's big shot. He's the son of the school's director. He's quite good-looking and popular with the girls. He might just have a problem with his eyesight. Mo Xian pinched the space between his brows and was a bit hesitant. After deep consideration, he said, Ninth Master will find out sooner or later. Su Yi agreed. It's just a matter of an early or late death. So, Su Yi took a deep breath, knocked on the tightly shut door and pushed it open carefully. He saw that the curtains were all drawn, with only a narrow gap revealing a weak ray of light that landed on the man's face. Si Han's long body lay on the sofa, one leg bent and one hand covering his eyes to block out the light. The collar of his black shirt that was normally meticulously buttoned to the top now had 2 buttons unfastened, his devilishly handsome face morbidly pale. His presence produced a gloomy aura around him. But with this kind of aura, not only did it not hurt him, it made him look more malicious instead, like a vampire that had been in deep sleep for 1,000 years in an ancient palace. In fact, the master was 100 times more dangerous when silent than when actively enraged. Su-yi swallowed hard and walked over trembling. Ninth master? There are some messages for you. They were sent by Shinmeng-chi. She sent many messages over. It might be an emergency. In the past, as long as it was a message from Shinmeng-chi, Si-han gave it his full attention. But now, Si-han didn't react at all. Su-yi waited for a long while, so long that his limbs were going numb. So, he could only summon up his courage and tell him the news. Ninth master? There seems to be a boy in school who's courting Ms. Yi. In the next second, there was a surge of cold air and a fearsome, murderous intent entered the space. Although the man on the sofa didn't move and only kept his eyes open slightly, the atmosphere changed completely. Facing this terror, the petrified Su-yi was filled with fear in his heart. He grieved in silence for that boy who was blind and tempting death and prepared himself well for whatever came next. While Su-yi was still extremely nervous, a sudden ringing of the phone shocked him so much that he almost tossed the phone away in fright. He quickly looked at the incoming call display, thinking that it was Shinmeng-chi trying to stir up trouble again, but then he saw clearly that it was actually Yi Wanwan. Su-yi's heart suddenly went to his throat. Why is Yi Wanwan calling at this hour? Ninth master, it's Ms. Yi calling. A video call. Chapter 88. Top-notch suck-up. In the room that was as quiet and gloomy as a cemetery, only the ringing of the phone reverberated. Su-yi couldn't guess what was on Si-han's mind and couldn't figure out whether he wanted to answer this call or not. He stood there, frozen with the phone raised. He had a sense of foreboding about this call. He hoped Master would ignore it. The atmosphere became more and more unbearable with each ring. The ringing was like a bomb ticking away. Su-yi's nerves were frazzled, and probably because he was so flustered, his hands slipped and he accidentally pressed the button to answer. In the next second, Yi Wanwan's usual grotesque face appeared on the screen. Damn, it's over. At the other end, Yi Wanwan had waited for a very long time and saw that the phone was just about to automatically end the call. Right at that moment, the screen flashed and the video call was finally connected. The moment she saw the screen, Yi Wanwan's pupils contracted. She could only see the man on the screen lying on the sofa with one hand over his forehead, his collar with 2 buttons unfastened and hair in a mess. His face was abnormally pale. Even through the screen, she could feel the terrifying and dangerous aura emitting from the man's body. Judging by the angle on the screen, the phone seemed to be held by another person, possibly Su. The display on the phone was shaking slightly and she guessed it was Su-yi's hand trembling. From this slight tremble, Yi Wanwan was acutely aware of the dire situation and was 80% sure that Si-han had received the news already. She was a moment too late. Yi Wanwan pressed her lips together and squinted her eyes. Sorry? Did I interrupt your sleep? Su-yi saw that he had answered the call accidentally and could only try to mediate the situation with his head drenched in cold sweat. Ms. Yi, ninth master hasn't gone to bed yet. Why are you calling this late? Is there something wrong? If there is nothing urgent, Yi Wanwan didn't wait for Su-yi to finish his sentence before nodding vigorously. Yes, I have an urgent issue. Su-yi. Oh, Yi Wanwan quickly said, there was a boy in school who confessed to me and he said he likes me. Su-yi almost vomited blood and his soul quivered. He knew he shouldn't have taken this call. He didn't notice that the phone was swaying back and forth, but he hoped Yi Wanwan would stop talking. Nonetheless, Yi Wanwan's mumbles continued through the phone. Could you come with me to meet this boy? Su-yi felt a bolt of lightning striking his head. She actually asked the ninth master to go with her to meet that boy? At this moment on the sofa, Si-han's half-opened eyes were now fully opened, like a wild beast waking up from its slumber. While Su-yi had all his hopes dashed, Yi Wanwan's voice continued coming through the receiver. I've told the boy that I have a boyfriend already and he didn't believe me. Do I look single? I was so mad that I agreed to bring my boyfriend for him to see on impulse. Not only do I have a boyfriend, my boyfriend's also 1,000 times better looking than our school's hunk. Su-yi stood rooted to the ground, completely dumbstruck as he listened and wondered whether this was some kind of trick. Yi Wanwan's sucking up was pretty darn good. Even the man's dreary expression was stunned for a moment. As Yi Wanwan didn't get a response for a long time, she hung her head low, dejected. Sorry? Did I trouble you? If it's not convenient for you then, time, the man's low and hoarse voice interrupted her from the other end of the call. Yi Wanwan was astonished for a moment before her eyes glowed. How about tomorrow night? Just outside school. Sure. Chapter 89. Because my boyfriend likes it indeed, telling the truth will get you a lighter sentence. The next morning, Yi Wanwan went to class feeling at ease. Soon after she sat down, a shadow was cast over her head. Ling Dong stood in front of her looking calm. Seeing this, Yi Wanwan shot a suspicious gaze over. Everybody in class looked at the both of them, hungry for gossip. Ling Dong pressed his lips together, looked at Yi Wanwan with a serious face and said, Yi Wanwan, I don't know where you've heard that rumor, but I swear, I'm definitely not pursuing you because of a lost bet or tricking you. I'm serious. Please believe me. Oh, all the students around burst into an uproar. Yi Wanwan's face darkened instead. She had painstakingly thought of this idea last night to refute the rumors, but in the end, everything was ruined by this guy. Looking at the boy's hurt face, Yi Wanwan stroked her forehead in silence. The things I told you yesterday were also true, don't you believe me? What did she tell me yesterday? The part where she said that she has a boyfriend? You're right. Ling Dong replied boldly. I'll bring you to meet him tonight. Yi Wanwan replied so softly that only Ling Dong and Si Xia beside her could hear. Ling Dong suddenly realized who the him was and a flicker of amazement crossed his face, but he quickly regained his composure. Sure. Finally, class ended. After dinner, there was no one in the school garden. Yi Wanwan called Ling Dong out and both of them went to a restaurant not far away from school. Ling Dong sat on the sofa opposite her with a look of certainty, as if he had already seen through Yi Wanwan's scheme. She would either give up and say it was all an act, or she would find someone to act as her boyfriend. The latter was more probable unless the guy was blind and couldn't see her ridiculous getup. Either way, he would never give up. Yi Wanwan naturally knew what was on Ling Dong's mind and didn't offer any explanation. She looked at the time on her phone. Si Han should arrive in about 20 minutes. Can I ask you a question? Ling Dong suddenly asked. Yi Wanwan nodded, yes. Ling Dong stared at Yi Wanwan's heavily powdered face and coughed lightly. You're so beautiful. Why do you do this to yourself on purpose? Yi Wanwan took a sip of her juice and blinked. Because my boyfriend likes it. Ling Dong was speechless like he got choked on dog food. Wanwan, you don't have to pretend anymore. Is it that hard to accept me? Even though I'm not as good looking as Si Xia, I dare say I'm not too shabby too. Anyway, when we're together, I'll never let anybody bully you and you can walk freely in school. Ling Dong's tone was full of confidence. Of course, he had the ability to make all of that happen. Ling Dong's popularity in school was only second to that of Si Xia, otherwise, his affection wouldn't have caused everybody to hate her. Yi Wanwan rested her chin. I only have feelings for my boyfriend. Ling Dong gave a helpless expression, then his eyes slightly glistened. Fine, Wanwan. Since you insist that I don't believe you, I'll start believing you now. I'll believe everything you said, believe that you have a boyfriend and believe that your boyfriend treats you as well as you said. But what if your words are proven to be false and you were lying to me this whole time? Yi Wanwan took a big bite of caramel pudding and without thinking, said, if I was lying to you, then I'll agree to be with you. After Ling Dong heard that, his face immediately brightened. Are you serious? Yi Wanwan nodded sincerely, of course I am. Chapter 90, Girlfriend Snatcher. Seconds and minutes passed, and just like that, 20 minutes flew by. However, time was up and Si Han still hadn't arrived. But after the full 20 minutes, Su Yi gave her a call. Hello Ms. Yi, we're very sorry. Ninth Master is in the middle of something, we'll need you to wait a while longer. What's the matter? Yi Wanwan asked hastily. Su Yi's tone sounded somewhat odd. He hummed and hawed for a long time before answering, No, it's nothing much, you just have to wait a while longer. Oh, all right then, Yi Wanwan was reassured. After she hung up, Yi Wanwan said to Ling Dong, my boyfriend has a sudden matter to attend to so he'll be a bit late. Ling Dong folded his arms across his chest and gave a knowing expression that he had expected her to say this. He casually replied, "It doesn't matter, I can wait." Si Han was usually very busy, so it was normal for him to be delayed. Yi Wanwan didn't think much of it and continued to wait. Another half-hour flew by. Si Han still hadn't arrived. But Su Yi called again and informed her with an embarrassed tone, "Ms. Yi, ninth master hasn't settled things here, you might have to wait some more." "Oh, it's fine, let him finish up his work first." Yi Wanwan replied, not fussing at all. Ling Dong, who was sitting opposite, looked at Yi Wanwan. "Why? He's been delayed again?" Yi Wanwan nodded, "So sorry, he's extremely busy." Ling Dong played along, "No problem, I don't have anything to do anyway, we can take our time." Just like that, 1 long hour went by and the restaurant was emptying out. After the hour, Su Yi called for the 3rd time. This time, Su Yi sounded even weirder. He was trembling in fear like he was about to cry. Yi Wanwan wasn't sure what kind of trouble he'd gotten into. "I'm truly sorry, ninth master is still not done." Oh, Yi Wanwan felt that something was off. Could it be that something serious happened? Or did Si Han actually not want to come? But that couldn't be. If Si Han didn't want to come, he could have rejected her outright. There was no point in him agreeing and then keep getting Su Yi to give her excuses. "How about we meet another day?" Yi Wanwan suggested. Su Yi panicked immediately. "No. Please. I'm really sorry, Ms. Yi. Ninth master can't leave at the moment, but he'll be there tonight no matter what. Please wait a little longer, please." All right then." After Su Yi's pleading, Yi Wanwan could only agree, but she was very curious. What exactly was happening over at Si Han's house? After Yi Wanwan hung up the phone for the 3rd time, Ling Dong looked at the time, stared at her and said, "Wanwan, if this so-called boyfriend you mentioned doesn't show up by 12 a.m. tonight, can it be considered that you were lying to me?" Yi Wanwan thought about Su Yi promising that Si Han would show up tonight no matter what and nodded in the end, yes. Ling Dong's face lit up after hearing this and relaxed. Now, he eagerly watched the time pass bit by bit. There was only about an hour left till 12 a.m. Just an hour more and this girl would become his girlfriend. Chapter 91. Put her down. It was almost closing time for the restaurant and they were the only ones left. Lately, Yi Wanwan's sleep schedule was pretty regular and she'd normally be fast asleep at this time, so she felt quite sleepy. When no one appeared after waiting some more, Yi Wanwan's eyelids became heavier and heavier. She leaned on her chin at first, then she started lying on the table and subsequently fell asleep. Ling Dong kept an intense watch over the time initially, but when he raised his gaze, he realized that Yi Wanwan was sleeping soundly. He stared at the way the girl slept and the fleeting glimpse from that night appeared in his head. His ears started burning bright red. She'd said plainly that if she was lying to him, then she'd be his girlfriend. Did she agree because she actually liked him? Ling Dong glanced at the time again and became quite excited. Passionately, he reached out to the girl's face. "Wanwan." At this moment, there was a smash and the restaurant's glass door was forced open by a slender and fair hand, accompanied by a gust of night wind. "So sorry, our restaurant is closed." That was the voice of the restaurant owner, dissipating into the night wind. The sound of footsteps came closer and closer. Ling Dong felt an inexplicable chill on his back and looked at the door subconsciously. In the next second, his pupils constricted. In his line of sight was a man walking towards him slowly. The man was in a vintage classic black suit. His glacial eyes looked as if they were capable of freezing his soul. As he walked over step by step, it seemed like he didn't resemble a person at all. He looked like a demon king who traveled with the night wind and used the light of the moon to reach the earth. The spacious restaurant suddenly appeared narrow and cramped. Looking at the man's refined disposition and devilishly good looks, Yi Wanwan's words appeared in Ling Dong's head. 1,000 times better looking than Si Xia. There was actually a person like that in this world, and this was him. Just as Ling Dong regained his senses and realized he was gaping at the man was suddenly standing right in front of him. "Can I help you with anything?" Ling Dong asked subconsciously. The man didn't reply and looked coldly at him. Ling Dong felt like he was his prey, being devoured at his throat. As Ling Dong's body stiffened up, a cold sweat covered his forehead. Yi Wanwan, who was totally unconscious and in deep sleep, started falling off the side. Seeing that Yi Wanwan was about to fall, Ling Dong started to reach out for her. The man standing opposite used a relaxed, subtle and wickedly fast tilt of his body and caught the girl instead, who landed right into his arms. Ling Dong looked at the man holding on to Yi Wanwan, hugging her, and his gaze tightened. Yi Wanwan woke up in a shock, rubbed her eyes in a daze and looked at the person in front of her. She blanked out for a while. Then, slowly, she rubbed the man's body and grumbled, "What took you so long?" The man looked at the girl in his arms. His cold gaze completely contrasted with his warm expression. Ling Dong looked at Yi Wanwan and then at this man. What's going on? While Ling Dong stared blankly, the man started hoisting Yi Wanwan up. Ling Dong finally regained his senses and blurted out, "Wait, put her down. Or you." In the next moment, the chilly atmosphere around them intensified. The man looked at the girl in his arms and while Ling Dong continued staring at him in shock, he slowly lowered his head and kissed the girl on her outrageously colored lips. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.